Hi, good morning. So we yesterday, last Friday, we talked about creating the manage users. We did all the prerequisite for that. So I'm just sharing the screen. Confirm once you are able to see the screen. Please confirm once you are able to see the screen. Yeah. Okay. So we created a component called manage users as an independent routing module, and it has its own routing as well. So in that routing, we need to ensure that we add that basic, that is whenever you have the routing, that this path needs to be added. So we created the component. We have this method, and that method is getting called by this, so that we get the basic result set outside. So this much we have done on that day, and it is integrated to the auth service as well, which is HTTP service. So HTTP service also we integrated that as part of the HTTP service. We get the get user list. So we actually wanted to go with the table component. So for doing that, first is we need to put it inside this auth routes. Make sure that this is matching to the manage users component. So manage user module or component, sorry. This is component. So manage user component, once you give, it is getting added as well. So same way as we have added a register component, we have added a manage user component as well under routing module. This will ensure whenever you come to that route, so you are being routed to the component level. So next is we need to call the module of that component. So to call the module of the component, I can do it under login. Right now we have done everything under login. So we keep it, copy paste this. So copy paste this under login. So instead of register, I say users. I call users. So in register, I am going to register the module. So it is manage users, manage users, manage users module. Then m dot manage user module. So all gets from the help, you will get everything. It's because if you are using Visual Studio Code as an editor, this has all the intelligence. So based on intelligence, you will know which path you are in and so on. So we are now calling this module. Again, it is a lazy loading. So this module in turn logs into this module. So users is the name that I have given. That means when I give as a user, it will try to load this module. And when it loads this module, it tries to come to the routing module. It loads this component. When it loads this component, it comes to the component here, manage user works, and then it calls this TS file. In this TS file, this ng on init having get non-admin user list, so he gets that, and this HTTP request has that localhost 8080 API get non-admin user list. Because it is integrated to that, it will call that. Now I need to make sure I start all the application. I just start the node command prompt. Start the Angular service as well as the backend service. First I'm starting the Angular service. Angular service. Sorry, it is CD project 1. FS project 1. So ng serve. This is my Angular service. Now I am calling the node service as well. That is our TS server service. So FS project 1, TS server, inside TS server, I call the node mon TS server, sorry, index.ts. I start this service as well. So our service has started now. So with this service now, we are going to connect 8080 port. So that is what it is. Now I come back to the browser, localhost. I start the localhost. So localhost has started. Now I have a register button. I can have a users button also here. To start with, I go with that model, or I can directly type the users in the thing because I am not doing any validation right now. So validations and all will take later. So for time being, I'll go to the login module. In the HTML, I'll have one more button created. One more button created as login. Sorry, users. Manage users. So I call it as users here. So this function I need to create underneath login component. So like register, I call now users now. Users here. So the routing, you need to ensure that this routing is nothing but that is defined in the routing.ts file here, users. If it is user, user, if it is users, users. This is the path that you need to give here. So I'm copy pasting that underneath here. I'm just giving users. So that means I just integrated now one button I just called. In that click right turn. So I just use one space between the two buttons. So style, say margin left, say 10, 16 pixel. I just give a space here for time being. I'm not using primary or secondary because login is not covered with that. So I'm using a non-angular material component. I have two components. One is it goes to register page and it goes to manage users page. This also we created. When you click on this, it is calling the routing and that routing is available here. So users routing can be created at global, that is at the app layer also. That means app.component.app.routing.ts, or you can keep underneath login as you wish. It can be routing, can be anywhere. It doesn't matter. Make sure there is no conflict in the routing. The same name you should not call it in another place. You need to ensure that you can have a child routes also created. So then it becomes a children within colon, the child route starts, the path and other things start. So that's another thing that will come to that little later. Right now ours is all about root nodes. So everything is slash domain slash login, domain slash register, domain slash users. So we are not creating any child nodes. We are creating everything at the parent node level only. So that's how it is. So with this now we created the basic in our TS server. I'm just to give you the heads up on TS server what we have coded. Under TS server, we started with the API routing. Under API, we had this get non-admin user list. So this is the landing page of that. This is what will give the response. This in turn calls the user controller. So when I go to the user controller, he calls the DB layer. Press control and click on that link. It will take you there. So select ID, email, name created on from users where admin is not admin. I'm getting that user list. So it comes to the controller to the routing. So it comes to the routing. API is the router. So we are giving the result. So once the result is passed, we tested this using Postman also. Now we are integrating that to the Angular. So I just close these pages so that we have the less number of pages. So in manage first HTTP, that is my routing interface starting with. I created the localhost 8080 API get non-admin user list. So that non-admin user list is, if you want to know where and all this admin user list is listed, right click, find all references. It will give you where and all it is being called. I am calling it underneath here. So if it is in more than one places, any change you do, you have to be very careful. So this is how we are bringing that into the UI. So this data we are now, first is we are going to route it. So when I do the routing, I go to the Explorer window. When I do the routing, it comes here and it lands up on this page. So we'll wait at this point. So we'll try to see now. I have already started. So compilation has happened. So it is ready. There is no change in the thing. So I'll go back, go to the login page. So go to the login page. You can see register and manage users. Click on manage users. You see the users list. Manage users has come. Right click, inspect element, because it might have called the DB. So that is this data. So it has called the DB and it has got the data as well. This data I want to present it in the UI. So this is where I want to do it with the table format, because this is where the table format is used. So table structure is used. The table preparation is slightly different from what you do it in your normal Angular, normal HTML, and the way you prepare it in Angular is two different things. So we are trying to present it in Angular material. So we'll try to present this table structure. That's what our agenda for today. So how to present that in the UI? For that, I need to understand about table component. So I kept the table component ready, Angular material components. Underneath, I have gone into tables. This is the table. This table, you would see that list. So this is how the table is defined here. APIs are there. So APIs, so that means you need to import this Angular table module. We need to import. So this module, I can import it now onto the component of this manage users, because it is not used anywhere else for time being. So it is not a global guide. So I want to introduce that as part of the module here. I want to introduce here tab module. So since it is a module, I need to use it in the imports, mat table module. So the module is imported now. So this module is now available for you to do. This is the first mistake we generally do. We don't import this, but we try to use that example, whatever is there, we'll try to use it. So that is where the problem starts. So the most important thing by default, I'll just go to some example here. So I'll just take this example to explain it better to you. It starts with table and it is a mat table. So this mat table understands that it is a Angular material component. And I need to define the data source. What is data source here? Now this data, whatever the data appears here, this is what we call it as a data source. So in our case, the data source needs to be defined. If you go to the TS, you see that the data source is defined here. So the data source is defined here. Data source is element of data. The element of data is defined at this. So in this case, they have given a hard-coded value. In our case, we got this data from the table. So periodic interface is basically the table structure. You can define the table structure also. This is how may look like, the data structure look like. So and then it is an array of element. Array of element is given here, and ultimately data source is nothing but element data. So this is the data. So what we need to give here is, I'll just step by step I'll go. The first is declaration of data source. So in my Angular component, I need to declare the data source. I do the declaration above the constructor. So in our case, our user collection, I use the word user collection. So I can use either interface and all I can create, or I can just put any, and any of array I can just define like this. I can do it like this. It's an array element, but the array, within the array, it is anything. It can be a simple array, it can be a JSON array, it can be anything. That is why I used any before. And I said empty array. Default, I defined it as an empty array. So that is very important. So generally what we do is, we generally don't do it in this way. So mat table data source. We generally use this, right? Inside this, we do it as an empty array. So I define it in that way. So mat table data source.
New
Mat table data source. I generally give it like this. You can see now the table from table that has got inserted. So this is the way, because I'm going to use it. I'm going to define this user collection as the Angular material data source. That is table data source. So it has its own advantages. The sorting, everything becomes easier. I can define it as a normal data source also. I can define it as a mat data source also. It is up to us to decide, but I prefer to define it in the mat table data source, because we are using the Angular material, features of Angular material in table. That is what our aim is. So I go back to so that is first is definition of data source. So I give the definition of the data source first. Once I give the definition for the data source, then HTML to be defined. HTML, CSS, the way you want to give your CSS, you can give it. Right now I'm not focusing on the CSS. This data source, we have submitted the data source. Inside the data source, if you see here, in our table structure in HTML, we'll have a TR, TD, TH. TH is for header, TR is for rows. Within TR, there will be multiple TDs. TDs is for division, basically columns. TDs are columns. So you can have n number of columns, you will give TD, etc. But it is slightly different here. So for defining the data source, the most important thing is these two columns. Right? Within the table, I'll just define the table now. These are all, this mat elevation Z8 and all default supported. I can use that same here in HTML, manage users component.html. I'll remove this here. Table source. I use this table source here. I can use one more, say, div. I can put this underneath div, and I can define a global margin, top margin, left margin, everything as style margin. I'm just giving a overall margin 16 pixel everywhere, left hand side, right hand side, top, bottom, everywhere. I'm just giving a 16 pixel margin, and then I'm starting my defining the table structure. The data source name is different, we have kept. So I use that data source here, user collection. I put that data source as user collection. So this is my first part. Second, this user collection, I need to pass the value to this user collection, right? That is where here I got the data. Once you receive the data, so where you want to put it, so user collection equals, so I can recreate new mat table data source, the entire result dot rows. This results dot rows is nothing but an array. Initially I declared it as an empty array. Later, now I am passing this result rows as part of mat table data source. I am passing it underneath user collection. So we pass that value inside that user collection. So this console log, let it be as it is, right? And also now I'll do one more console log. I'll put that user collection also as part of log. So you know the difference between the normal and mat data collection as well. So what the difference you have that in the data structure, you will come to know with this. So you put a result that is normal. Another is user collection, which is nothing but a mat table data source. I could put it here, user collection. I put it under the top. I just put it rows. That is database defined rows. This is user collection. Now I assign this user collection. I assign the value to the user collection. In case of empty, what you want to do? You can decide you want to empty this user collection. You can empty this user collection as well. When you are emptying it, you have to empty it in this way. You have to empty it in this way. Otherwise, you need to directly access the data component attribute, or I call it as data parameter inside this user collection. We'll come to know once we do the printing. So I created a HTML, still not complete. So table structure, when you are dealing with mat table data source, that these two columns are very important columns. So that is, the above are all column names. The above are all column names, right? These are all definition of the column names under this table. Whereas this one is display what you want to display, because you may have so many rows there. Generally, it is given in the end of the table. I also give it as part of the end of the table. I just given the end of the table and use the tab to ensure that my table structure is set. So this displayed column is another attribute which has to tell, because you seen that I have lot of columns here, right? I have lot of email ID is there, name is there, created on is there. What column you want to show it in the UI? That is what the displayed columns are. So displayed columns I create here. For time being, I create in the same name. So how do I create here? Come to the manage component under TS, below this user collection. So I say user display column. So COL. So this is a simple array. So what this array is going to tell is, out of this column that you have, out of so many columns that you have, which column you want to show it in the display. So I want to show it email for sure. ID, yes, I can show that ID. Name, yes. So which column you want to show first? That column you put the name, ID, right? Within quotes, of course. It is within quotes, ID. Then name. Then I have an email. Please make sure you are using the same name that appear here. Name, email. So the same word is appearing there. Last, created on. I also want to know the created on. Created on underscore on within string, within quotes. Otherwise, it will treat it as a variable. Text. I want to edit, allow it to edit and delete. This is additional column which is not part of my, but I want to use this columns as icon. These two are icons for me. For initially, I will not worry about that now. So this is my display column. So this display column, instead of display and all, I just use this user display column. This column, I come to the HTML. Instead of display columns, I tell now this is use this variable name. Very important. So this one defines your structure. Still not complete. Now I just given what a row look like. A row look like user display column. So user display columns are nothing but array of rows. The rows are defined there. But the rows, the way the row has to be defined, first is ID, second is what column, that is defined by first is ID, second is name, third is email, fourth is created on, fifth is edit, sixth is delete. So this is what I want to display the name, display the column structure. So now I want to define the actual column. The actual column is you just take one copy I can paste that copy everywhere. So this irrespective of this, you can give any name here. So this is nothing but ID now. So I call it as ID, right? So element, I call it as element.id. This is a value column. So this is my header row. This is my TD. Header row is taking this user display collection from that ID, right? That ID is defined here. So this column definition is what I'm using it here. So this now I copy paste. ng container is important point. So without ng container, it cannot set the value, right? So now I can repeat. So I have a name column. The second, irrespective, I can give an email also here. It doesn't matter. But if I give email, don't expect an email to be a second candidate. As per me, the name is the second candidate. So the name is the one which will appear here. Use the same thing that is used there, name. Right? This is the value column. This is the text column. I can have full name. I can give it like this also. That means it need not be the header row can be different. Now I have a edit. For time being, I'm just giving an edit. I don't give anything here for time being. I'm just giving it as an empty. So this also I'm giving it as an empty for time being. Last is delete. Whatever the rows I have given it in the array, that should be available here. So created on, I missed out. So created on, I'll add one more column, created on, same, identical. So here I say created on. Here I use a pipe symbol because I want only the date. I don't want I'm not worried about time. Then I can use a pipe. Pipe is a angular material command. I tell it is a date, and what is the format of the date, I can give it here. So I can say dd mmm yyyy. So this is my format I want to display in my UI. I don't want timestamp. I want only the date. So and also I want triple M. Basically it is month, MON, June, JUN, April, APL, etc. etc. So I can have, there are structures. So if you use date pipe as a structure, there is a help available that will give you that detail. So now I just define this. I given an overall margin. I use the same table structure as defined it here. So that table, mat table, data source. This data source is nothing but the data source that I have connected, right? And then elevation. This is my class default available in Angular material. I'm using that class. And then this is the thing that I have given. I just want to say save all. Now the things will get compiled. If there is no error, it will compile positively. Otherwise, it will give an error. So creator on pipe date, there is an error. No pipe found with name date. Okay. Before that, data source, since it is not a user collection. Mat table I've added as part of the property. Module component table I've used, table I've added. Okay, what else I missed? Data source is right, but it is not binding. Okay, let me control C. Let me just recompile it. There is a possibility that it is not compiled properly. User collection, is that right? User collection? User collection is right. Display collection is right. Mat table source is also right. Failed is coming still. User collection data source, since it is not a known property of table. Mat table I have used. Let me come from unfortunately it is not it. Let me check again.
Sir, there is a mistake with respect to module only, sir.
Where?
Importing, need to check it out. Material.tsy, I hope so you are having, sir.
Yeah, that is also there.
I think if you
Material
are
that well, I don't use now for this project. I don't use it.
okay,
I have an independent routing only. Independently, I'm loading all the modules.
okay, sir.
Here you
Then
can see here I register forms module. Everything is independent. So
okay,
that
sir.
is okay. So
Same way,
component
mat
module
table
that.
also.
So now I'm loading it at this juncture because it is component of manage users module. It's a component of this
Mat table,
table.
managers
So Angular
module.
table, match table module.
So mat table data source also has been imported in TS
No.
file.
Mm,
We need to
import.
import mat
Yeah,
table
that
data
is
source.
done. Data source is done, right? Data source is done. Is it to be at the top? Ah, that is also possible. I'll put it underneath. I think it should be here only, data source. I'll check my other areas. Just give me a second. Report somewhere. I'll use admin module. Here I have it in the admin module. Login settings. Set register PDF template, login header, home, DB directory, change password, login header, material. We used all the things over here, so that is a different story. PDF template, mobile navigation, login header, login HTML, modules, PDF print layout, register page, loading, component, home component, remote, visual, direct, home component.cs, auto complete, dialog, reusable, mat tables also it is part of that only. Mat sort we have not yet touched. That is correct. So module is module mat material module, that is the entire material module is got loaded. In that material module, mat table module, that's all, only table module that is coming from there, that is exported and that is being used. Only table module is used. Okay, let me check again here. What is the reason? HTML is getting loaded. User component, user collection, data source. Data source. Mobile login header. Login HTML. Home.html. Dot source. Correct only. That is mat table. That is okay. Mat card. That is okay. ng container. All that is fine. Table. Closure of table. Table is closed. Table is closed. That's okay. What's the issue? Manage users, component mat table, declaration here. Manage user module, correct only, all this correct. Session for date is also not recognized. This is a pipe, do pipe, default pipe it is, but that is also not recognizing. For time being, I can take out the pipe, doesn't matter. I can add it later. The circle cannot bind to data since it is not the known property of table. How come?
Sir, shall we try to import in app module.ts file, mat table?
I can, but it should not be because these are all. I can
Yes,
do
sir.
it. For time being, I can do it, but that should not be the case.
Sir. App module.ts file.
It should not be. And then this entire concept of thing will go off. Eh, I'm doing it, but I don't think it will. Let me see. Fail to compile. It's some other mistake. Some other mistake. You will error cannot bind to data source. I mean, right project. Project one. Project one. That is okay. User module.
User call spelling is right now, sir.
Yeah, collection. That is spelling right. That also I checked. Data source is not cannot bind to data source. Data source is supposed to be correct. Data source itself is not recognizing.
Sir, in manage users.component.ts file only we have imported data source.
Yeah,
Is it no, sir?
that is correct.
Mat table here. In TS file, data source has been imported in manage users component.ts
Yeah,
file.
correct. That is correct. That is correct. It's all right. Perfect. Hmm. Hmm. Mhm. Some mistake somewhere. Ah, it is supposed to be straightforward. Date table, mat table, HTML. One thing I'll just do.
Sir, new mat table result you had given or result.rows, sir. Okay,
Huh?
here.
That is okay. These are all not. No, it is not recognizing at all. Forget about all other things. Data set. I can have an empty row also here. It
Okay.
doesn't matter. Cannot bind data source. Known property of table. Manage users. Runtime property. I'm just taking the help from Google. Let me just see what he says for this error. Heading cannot bind table, matable data source, matable tag. Oh, mat table T capital. Oh, table module mat and mat table module, and that is okay. Hash table mat sort. Hmm. Don't know. All correct only. Table data source is correct. Data source is right. HTML mat table. Sometimes I may have to give it like this. That is also possible. Let me check that. Mhm. Failed. This should be without data source. Mat table will not work. User module.
Sir, mat hyphen table in HTML, sir.
That is okay. I changed it now only.
Okay.
I changed just now.
Okay.
That is okay. Table is a data source is an element. It's not a two-way binding. It's a single binding only. User collection is correct. Class is correct. Codes, everything is correct. Yeah, okay. Table is the right. Header row, metal row, display collection. Max row definition is correct. Rows is okay. th. Data source. Everything is perfect. Cannot bind. Somewhere routing module declared. Routing module declared. I think before. Matter
Sir, in declaration, component has to be mentioned.
component. No component. We don't have to mention here. There is nothing like that. For mat component, is it? That is
Sir,
coming through routing, right? It doesn't matter. For
yes,
register page, am I done? Oh, register component. Oh, that is possible. Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yes, possible. I have to give here manage users component. Yeah, maybe that is the one. Correct.
Yes.
Now I'll remove this. Move it from here. It should not be here for sure because then less-in loading doesn't have any impact. Let me check. Yeah, it has got compiled. Component has not got loaded. Usually it will supposed to create on its own, but anyway, that has got missed. component not loaded. Okay, now it is done. So it is loaded. We have that now ready available. So I'll just go to localhost, manage users, click on that. So now you can see here ID, full name, email created on is coming. Now I just have to load the data now properly. So I commented the data portion. I'm just enabling the data portion again. Enabling the data portion now. Control S, Control F. So now you can see it is now loaded. But if you see here, the overall structure it is taken care of, but you know the way it has got aligned, etc., is not appropriate. So now I'll just go with the date pipeline here. Pipe date colon format dd mmm yyyy. If I do this, so you can see now date is dd, mmm is doing something else. So I think it is mon. Yeah, 20th, but m is also 3 it is showing. Month is no. What is that? Month is what? mmdd. Month, minute is mi, I think. It is going as 1414, right? 14 m capital is 14. What is that? 20 date. 20 is date. 14 2020. Okay.
M
M capital or
M caps double M.
that is date. Yeah, 03. I want January, February.
Okay.
I want Jan, Feb, March. Yeah. Now M, capital M, March. I got that as M. So it is March. That is okay. So M means it is date. It is date. All are 3 months. So if I put M, I am getting it as a March. So this is I just table structure. In that table structure, it has just given the full name, ID, full name, email created on. It has aligned. Now it is not aligning properly. So elevation is working fine. This class is working fine, but the class inside is not as expected. So the class inside is not as expected. So this header cell, mat cell, we have some definitions, but it is not effectively working here. Whereas if I put here as 0, Z0 means there is no elevation. Or I can remove equivalent to that, you can remove the class itself. So you can see now there is no elevation, it is just a thing. Elevation Z4 up to Z8 it is supports, Z16 I think. Up to Z16 he supports. So there is a outer boundary. Whereas the other things are not properly aligned. Right? The table are not properly aligned. That also we can align it. That is a simple session that we can take, table structure. Whereas if you see here for him, he has also not used any of the CSS. CSS he has used only table equal to width 100. That's all he has used. Right? He has used table width 100, basic use of mat table. Well, I'll just check whether I am having mat table. Yeah, PLE. Mat table, but whereas this HTML he has used class Z, there is no other class he has used. But still for him, the position is everything is matching. For us, it is not matching. We'll see it as we go on. That also we'll see that. Okay, today we'll end with this. Tomorrow we'll just make sure that alignment, everything is working as expected. Okay, tomorrow we'll see how to bring in that alignment properly. Okay, I end with this today. So tomorrow we'll see the further. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we can end at this point. Okay, thank you. So this code I'll share it tomorrow once we complete this entire thing. Thank you. Bye.